Hey there, it's Kristen from Gorgeous Knits. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add fringe to your knits with a crochet hook. What you need is your knitted piece, some extra yarn for the fringe, a pair of scissors, either a ruler or a tape measure, and a crochet hook. For this demonstration, I am using hook size, it's USF 3.75 millimeter. And the yarn I am using is a worsted weight. Okay, also for this demo, I have just a simple swatch in garter stitch, nothing fancy here. And so my swatch is in this brown color, and the fringe, I'm going to use a contrasting color just so you can see the difference between the fringe and the swatch here, so you can see a little bit better with what I'm doing. Okay, so I already cut my strips of yarn for my fringe, but just to kind of walk you through what I had done, I took my ball of yarn that is slowly unraveling. Here's my end. And so what I did is I took my scissors and my tape measure, and I just measured out the length that I wanted for my fringe. So in this particular case, I measured an 8-inch strand. Okay, and then I just saved my spot, so that is 8 inches worth right here, my 8-inch strand, and then I just cut with a pair of scissors, and then I just repeated that over and over, and I'm actually using that first strand as my guide to just kind of make about another 8-inch strand or so. I did this, and you do this several times to get as many strands that you need for your fringe. The type of pieces that you would use fringe for would be something like a scarf or a poncho even, or a shawl, anything that you want to add a little frill to. Okay. All right, so I have some extra strands on top of what I had already cut here. And just move my supplies out of the way and grab my swatch here again. Okay. Put it like this instead. Okay. So I'm going to take my crochet hook, and looking at the right side of the work, I'm going to just start from left to right and just go across, adding my fringe. And then once I would do that, I'm going to turn my work the other way, still looking at it at the right side, and I would just add my fringe again from left to right. So if you picture something like a scarf, for example, I'll bring this back. This is one end of my scarf, and I unravel the whole thing, and that's the other side. All right, so let's get started. All right, bring my swatch back here and some of my strands. All right, so taking my crochet hook, and I want to start this way, right side. All right, so I'm going to bring this closer. So this was my cast on edge, and this on the other side was my bind off edge. So what I want to do is look for the first stitch. Let's come into focus here. I want to look for the stitches that are on my cast end, my cast on end. or my bind off end. And so I want to basically look for that first V stitch, which is right here. The camera's not in focus. There we go, that first V. So I'm putting my crochet hook into the two loops, basically those two loops that make that V for that first stitch. There we go. Okay. All right. Then I'm going to take my strand that I cut. This is for one strand, and I'm going to wrap it around my crochet hook. And I'm going to pull that strand through the V with the crochet hook. So I'm using the hook to just pull it through. Don't pull it through all the way, just enough that you create a little bit of a loop here. So then you want to just even out the strand so that both ends of it are the same length. That's about good. So then I'm going to pull these two ends through this loop. So I'm using my thumb and my pointer finger, and I'm just going to put my fingers through that loop basically, and I'm going to take those ends, grab them between my fingers and pull it through that loop and give it a yank to tighten it. Okay. And that's my first little piece of fringe right there. All right, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to find the next stitch, insert the hook through the V. Okay, and then take another strand, wrap it around the hook, pull it through. All right, I created my little loop here, and making sure that the two ends now are about the same length. There we go. I'm going to take my two fingers and go through the loop, and I'm going to grab those two ends and pull through the loop and tighten. Okay, so that's working one strand through each stitch for the fringe. I also want to show you working two strands. And you can make your fringe as thin or thick as you like. You could even do where you put the fringe every other stitch instead of next to each other like this. It really all depends on your preference with how you want your fringe to look, how thick or how thin, like I said. You can just do on either ends if you want, if you're making a scarf, for example. So there's really room for, you know, for your preference, really. You could kind of play around with it however you like. All right. So this, like I said, this was just putting one strand of fringe through the stitch. Now I'll show you two strands. So I'm going to grab two strands, and I'm going to just line them up a little bit so that they're about even. Okay. All right. So once again, I'm actually going to skip a couple of stitches just so you can kind of like see the difference a little bit. So I'm going to skip and go over to about this one here, about 3 over. Move my finger out of the way, right there. Okay, so I put my hook through the stitch again. So now I'm going to take my two strands and wrap them around the crochet hook, just like we've been doing. This time it's just two strands rather than the one. Pull them both at the same time through the stitch with the hook. Okay, so you're creating a loop with both of those strands. Just make sure that they are even, and make sure that, once again, your ends are a little even. Okay. All right, you're gonna take your fingers through both strands, the loops that are in from both strands, and you're gonna take the ends and pull through both at the same time. So it's almost like, just kind of ignore the fact that you have two strands here. You're just doing the same thing as you would with the one strand. Just pull through. Okay, so now see how I made kind of a thicker fringe by having two strands as opposed to the single. So again, it all depends on like your preference. It all depends on the pattern or what you are trying to, what kind of look you're trying to give your knit. Okay, so I would repeat all the way to the right, like I said, and then I would do the same thing on the other side and go from left to right. And then ultimately, again, I'll show you my scarf here. I use two strands each for my fringe here, and then you would look at something kind of like this. So once you have your fringe, come back to this. Once you have your fringe, the last step, let's pretend that I went all the way across here and all the way across on this side here. Just kind of, let's fix it and just trim. Just take your scissors and just trim any of the excess so that your fringe is roughly the same length going all the way across. You don't have any strands that are longer or shorter than others. You can use your tape measure if you need it. And that's it. And then you have fringe on your knitted works with a crochet hook. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Kristen from Gorgeous Knits. Thanks so much for watching.